Peace and blessings. My name is Carlos Walker, and this is Forward Progress. And today I have Miss, say your name,
Chalet
Ch-
Dubois.
Chalet Dua. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing. Look, we still
Great.
here.
Amen.
So, if you will, share a little bit about who you are, if you will.
My name is Chalet. I prefer to be called Candy, of course. That's my nickname. Just your regular girl from around the way. Born and raised in Clinton, Maryland. Was kind of bored with the life of Clinton, Maryland, and just wanted to kind of make my own adventures in the world. Make my own mark. Show people that I'm not just a country girl from Clinton. Um, Presently just surviving life, just surviving life.
Probably doing way more than surviving. You
I think
probably
I am.
you probably thriving and just trying to humble it down.
Yeah, I guess we could say that. Yeah, I definitely say that.
Okay. So here on Forward Progress, what we do, we share a little bit about who you were. You were formerly incarcerated, correct?
I wasn't formally incarcerated. Yes, 5 years. I had two concurrent sentences that they ran. Was sentenced in Charles County by Judge Nally, and was for credit card fraud, counterfeit money, drug charges, assault, second degree assault. Yeah, I had a long rap sheet, very long rap sheet.
You were busy when you were young.
I was actually in my 30s when all this came about. I was very humble when I was younger. My mom never allowed me to do anything, nothing went past Margaret. My first outing, I was 14 going on 15, and it was a little place down here in the country called Wilmer's Park, and hung out there. Went to a little show that they had. My brother, my cousin, and I did everything I could in that one night because I knew I wasn't getting back out anymore, and ended up pregnant with my oldest daughter. So I had my first kid at 15, my second child at 17, was married at 18, but didn't think anything out of the ordinary. Just that's just how it was supposed to be. Go to work, come home, go to work, come home, take care of your kids. Um, Fast forward, bad marriage, kind of outgrew one another because we both were very young. Just kind of outgrew one another. No domestic violence or anything, just verbal, a lot of verbal confrontation, and just we went our separate ways to make ends meet. Me and the street met, and the street introduces you to a world that you're not prepared for, but you are prepared for in essence. And if not, it'll grow you up and groom you to what it wants you to be. And that's exactly what it did. And once I got out in the street, it was just a different taste of the world. It's like going from eating bologna straight to steak. Uh,
So if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you actually got into the streets? Because it was after 18.
I was 27, going on 28. A friend of mine, I'm not going to name her name, but she was just like, "Oh, it's easy. Let's just do this." And I was like, "All right." Not green or anything, and not a follower. It was just she always had money, but she
Mm.
didn't work. I kind of knew, but then when she finally got a little part-time job, I was like, that part-time job is not adding up to what's in your purse. So she just kind of like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. She's like, this is the easiest, which was the counterfeit money. We can do this. And I was like, okay. She's like, just you go to the grocery store, you intertwine it with your money and pass it on, buy your groceries, and you get your change back and you just keep it going. I was like, okay, cool. Did that. Money was still coming in, not like I wanted it to. So then I got introduced into some other things, which was hustling out in the street. Um, no heavy weight or nothing, just weed. But then it got to the point was like, well, I told her, I was like, why keep buying it from this person when you can go here and go straight to the source? So we made our runs to Texas, made our runs to North Carolina, buying about a pound, buying about just mass quantities, and just came back and set up shop and was actually doing really good. Then got into the credit card fraud, and the greed took over. And it was
Mm.
like once the greed took over, the greed and the need, and that's not a good combination. And it was like as fast as the money was coming in, it was going back out because I knew I could. Well, that's gone, so we blew that credit card out. Let's just go get another one. Let's get another one. Let's get another one. Not realizing IP addresses were being traced and tracked, even though you're using various emails accounts, it's still being traced and tracked.
Mhm.
Um, this undercover came to my door as a lady, and I had two dogs. And the lady was like, she said, "What kind of dogs do you have?" And I was telling her, and she introduced herself to me, and I introduced myself to her. Not my real name, but just introduced myself to her. But they had been watching me, and I was telling somebody, I was like, when the hairs on your neck raise up, and your gut tell you a little something, then you just kind of know. But you just kind of brush it off, thinking you're paranoid. At least I did. And next thing I know, the feds was knocking at my door and knocked at my door and came in. I will say this: if I knew then what I know now, all that stuff could have been thrown out,
Mm,
way thrown out. But every lesson, everything in your life is a lesson, a season, and a blessing. And you go through your seasons. So it was a lesson learned for me to tell, hopefully, somebody else that I've told this to, just in general conversation, they've listened or taken a nugget from it. So just kind of know your rights when it comes to the law. I will say that, especially in Charles County, because Charles County is notorious for doing unscrupulous things to the African American community.
okay. So I do want to go back slightly
Hmm.
before you got into anything. Who were you? Like you can go as far back as a kid to up until that night where you did everything under the sun in one night.
I was just a typical kid. I lived on Temple Hills Road. I was the youngest of four at the time. My mom had my little brother. So then I was the baby girl of five. And my mom had my little brother to change a life. So I kind of took care of him. I went to local elementary schools, Sarasville Elementary, then Clinton Grove, Stephen Decatur Middle School. And then I went to Sarasville and Gwynn Park. I went to Gwynn Park because my intentions were to go into the Air Force. That was my goal. I wanted to go into the Air Force. Um, I had my plan all set up, going into the Air Force to get away, and then even though I had my daughter by the ninth grade, but my plan was to go into the Air Force. My mom got extremely sick with COPD, congestive heart failure, diabetes, etc. So you have to sign your child to someone while you're away, and she couldn't do it. And her dad was busy in the streets selling drugs, so I definitely wasn't leaving her with him. Honor roll student, grade point average was 3.92, 4.0. Never excelled in everything that I did. I ran track. Um, just the all around teenager. Just had a baby in tow. Elementary school, very quiet actually in elementary school. I was really quiet. Got to middle school and it was just a whole nother world. Whole nother world. But it was a good world because it took me out of a shell. Um, Maybe a little bit faster than what I think I should have been taken out, but I was taken out of the shell nonetheless. And I thank God for it now looking back because I was exposed to a lot of stuff that my mom sheltered me from, which would have left me very naive out here in the world. And when I tell folks with their children, you don't want them exposed to everything, but when you don't expose them to some things, it causes a chaotic event in their life because then when they finally get a taste of it, they don't really know how to handle it.
Or
And
they get curious, and
yeah,
curiosity, as they say, curiosity kills the cat. It
hmm,
makes the person chase and you run it down.
yeah, exactly. And it's because you don't know, and it's just something very new to you. So yeah, like I said, you want to shelter your children from things, but not to the point where like I was sheltered.
Mm.
Um, and it was like the kids would go at the age of 10. The one thing that I remember, my grandmother passed away, and my childhood stopped. I was coming home at the age of 10, cooking complete meals like frying chicken, cooking greens, making potato salad, macaroni and cheese, taking care of a 10-year-old kid, little boy, my brother. But I always like it scarred me. I will say that it scarred me because I didn't have a childhood. I was an adult, a mini adult, and I was doing what adults should do. Like I used to help write money orders out, help write the checks for the bills, stuff like that. And that's not what a child should be introduced to at the age of 10. They should be playing with doll babies, etc. No sexual abuse or anything, nothing like that ever. But it was just introduced to the world too fast as an adult. I don't think looking at kids now, I doubt very seriously if a child 10 can actually clean a chicken, cut a chicken up. I was actually cutting up a chicken, cleaning it, seasoning it, frying it. A 10-year-old nowadays, they probably will cut their hand off. If it ain't a chicken nugget, they ain't dealing with it.
I like to say you just prepared better. Look, because the kids these days, as you just said, the only thing they know how to do is microwave.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So we're gonna fast forward to, I guess it was the day that they put you in prison.
Hmm.
I like to deal with the psychological things of life. So you're locked up
Hmm.
and you're about to get sentenced,
Hmm.
or you get sentenced. What was the feeling, or what was the thought that was running through your mind?
What was the thing of it was when I went to court, I had a public defender. His name was oh my God, what was his name? Tally, Mr. Tally. Mr. Tally now is Judge Tally at in Charles County. So he was my public defender, and he was more shocked than I was. Um, when I went to court, Judge Nally was always gives you two options. You have option A or option B. Option A is get locked up for 6 months and you're done. Option B, you can go home and be on probation for 5 years. Why I didn't take the 6 months, I don't know. I took option B and went home. So I was actually out. What happened, I lost my job and I wasn't able to pay my probation fees. And my probation officer's name was Mr. Leathers. He was not a good probation officer at all, and he violated me because I couldn't pay my probation fees. So I go back to court. Once I go back to court, Judge Nally is like, "Well, I gave you your two options, option A or option B. Unfortunately, you didn't hold your end of the bargain up, and my public defender, which was Mr. Talley, was trying to explain to him like she lost her job, she's waiting for unemployment to come in, and I actually was like I was fighting with the state of Maryland, and he was like, nah, so so be it. 5 years, bang the gavel, 2 5-year sentences, bang the gavel, sent me out. I didn't even have time to pick my kids up from like even call my children because they were in middle and high school. They were in both. I'm sorry, they were both in high school. I didn't have time to call them. And that was the one thing I asked him. I was like, let me reach out to my daughters or let me come back this evening. I promise I'll come back so I can go home and get my kids to prepare them for this so I can make, my next move. Nah, you got to go. So he sentenced me. Out of everything, I could care less about the sentence. It was just not saying goodbye to my kids, my two daughters. So Charles County, they hold you there for umpteen days. I'm going to say, I don't even remember the day count. I want to say it was like 45, 50 days. And then they pop your door in the middle of the night. So like 1:30 in the morning, they pop your door to transport you to Jessup. So they transported us up. It was me and two Caucasian women. And she's in the back of the van. One was a drug charge. She had 18 months. And the other one, reckless driving under the influence. She got 36 months. And Charles County, you have to have a year and a day to get sent up the road. But at any rate, the young lady that was drug charged, she was kind of freaking out because she was going through withdrawals, like really bad. The other young lady, she was just like, well, I'm only going to do such and such. Like she had her plan mapped out. I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to go to the kitchen. I'm going to do this and I'm going to get out and come home. It didn't really hit me until I got there and feet touched ground. And like 30 days are shaved off your sentence. At the women's prison, they shave 30 days off your sentence as soon as your feet touch ground. Didn't help me any because I had 2 5-year sentences. But when I go into this holding cell area and they strip you, and I'm just like, and they pour this pink stuff to make sure you don't have lice, and they pour this pink stuff on you, and I was like, it was just like somebody just gave me the biggest gut shot ever, and it was like the most embarrassing moment ever because the guards are there, but they're not doing the work. The inmates process you in. And the inmates are the ones that's helping you do this and helping you do that and so forth and so on. And I was just like, so these people ain't my business. Well, a little bit of business I got left now. And of course, your business is out in the yard before you even get to the yard. So it's like all my privacy is gone. And that was the one thing between my daughters and my privacy. That was the one thing that annoyed me the most. And it was more of an annoyance than anything. And then it became go here, go there, go here, go there. And these officers are like 18, 19 years old. So I'm like, my kids are your age. And you're up there telling me what to do. Then I got pissed off. It was like just pissed off. And I just sat there and I was like, well, what else you gonna do? It's not like you can get, you get out of a jail free card and go home, whatever. They send you for, it depends on the time that you get. They're sending you for an evaluation at Jessup, well, the female prison. They're sending you for an evaluation. I didn't have enough time for them to send me. You gotta get like 20 plus years, which I'm glad for, but you gotta get like 20 plus years. Um, Charles County has sentenced so many people up there. Like it was for every 10th person that went to court, 8 of those 10 people were sent up the road, male or female. And they were all by the hands of Judge Nally. So when I get to Charles County, everybody that was out in the street with me was up there. So it was like a reunion kind of sorta. So you're in a central hub till you get sentenced to your cell block. Jessup's women prison at the time was very small, and then they had 2 prisons, and they sent you to one up the. I can't remember the name of it, but they sent you up the street. It was literally up the street, but it's more of a rehab, and those are for people that were in the process of getting ready to go home. So as new people came in, they shifted the old ones out up the street. All I remember was like my first 4 days in and waiting to get sent to my holdings, wherever they're going to send me out to my cell block. One of the officers was like, "You don't even belong here." And I just kind of looked at her, and I didn't know she was talking to me because there's a bunch of us in there. And she's like, "You right there," and pointing at me. I was like, "Me?" And she was like, "Yeah, you." She said, "You don't even belong in here." She's like, I can just tell." She said, "You got caught up doing something stupid." And I was like, "If you say so." If you say so, and I ain't say nothing. But I feel that they already know you. So they're either making an attempt to either rile you up, see what your feedback is, or how you're going to answer and evaluate. They're evaluating you. It's like a mental evaluation. That was pretty much it. So when I finally got sent to my actual assigned cell block, that itself was just like, what in the heck? It was dark, dismal. It actually, I swear to God, to this day, the longer I think about it, I was like, the health department shut the thing down. It was bad in there. I was like, what in the mess? It was, I wasn't expecting the Hilton, but I wasn't expecting that either. The living quarters were very tiny and tight, and I still to this day call it Amistad. I like it. That's what it reminds me of. I was like, it was just tight and tiny. What you don't learn in the street, you will learn in jail. What you don't learn in the street, you will learn in jail. Um, a lot of my cousins were there, and just talking with them. One of my cousins, I hadn't seen her for like ever. She was only 24. She said she had been there for like 3 years at this point. And I was like, no way. But her parents had never said anything. So we just like, she thought, oh, she's gone away for a little while. She'll be back. That's what they kept telling everybody. So when I get up there and I'm seeing her, I'm like, took my glasses off, put my glasses back on. I was like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, she's like, I got caught up in the sweep. They raided these houses down in Charles County over Ryan Woods, da da da. I was like, this is crazy, like really crazy. So my first 90 days, you can't do anything. So you literally go to eat, you come back to your cell. You can't do nothing because you're still getting processed in. It was the longest 90 days, I will say, that I've ever really, because you're just stuck in this cell. And then your bunkmate is rotating in and out because you're where you're at is not your permanent bunkmate. When I finally, after day 89, my permanent bunkmate, she arrived. I was on the bottom bunk, she was on top bunk. So she arrived. She was a 54, at that time, 54-year-old lady, worked for an accounting firm that had embezzled over $450,000 and got caught because she just ran her mouth. There's no honor among thieves. No honor among thieves. And the lady turned her in to save herself. I was like, oh wow. So she was she was all right. Like I had no incidents. I had no issues with anybody in there. They say keep your head down. You see it, you don't see it. Exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. And everything ain't for everybody. And still to this day, everything ain't for everybody. So
So while in there, what did you do to rehabilitate yourself?
I read a lot of books. That was one thing my mom, when we were younger, um, she had a dictionary. My mother had to come out of school in the 7th grade. And every day my mother would pull words out of the dictionary. She knew what they meant. And she would give them to us, me and my siblings. to tell her the definitions, whether they were noun, adverb, adjective, whatever. We had to tell her what they were, what they meant, use it in a sentence, and spell it. When I got locked up, same thing. I went, just buried my heads in books, and a young lady was writing an appeal letter, and I looked at the letter, and every appeal was spelled wrong. Like everything was just misspelled, like severely misspelled. And I was like, "You need some help with that?" And she just kind of like snapped on me, and I was like, I'm just trying to help you. I was like, because the judges look at stuff like that. I was like, your sentences are ran on, your this is that, and so forth and so on. And she was like, well, since you know so much, you go ahead and write it. So I said, no problem. So I took it, and one of the officers was walking around. I guess she was kind of standing there because we were kind of close, and you can't be so close. But I was kind of leaning over, looking at the paper, and she tapped me on my shoulder. She's like, move back. So I shifted back, and I took the letter and I rewrote it twice. And I said, because how you're writing it is how you're talking it as if you were talking to someone. I said, and right now you need to write it in third party because you're explaining yourself, but you want to explain it to them. And then you want to make it mean something. And you definitely want your words to be spelled correctly. So she was like, all right. So I helped her. We wrote it out. Then the officer told somebody, I can't remember who she told, a captain or somebody, and was like, she can help with the told me I can help with the GED program. So I actually went into the GED program and was a tutor and was tutoring people on sentences, reading, and just sounding words out. And it's sad to say that a lot of women that were in there were from certain areas of Baltimore, like up at Park Heights, Liberty Road, Shady Side Avenue, which is not too far from Morgan State, but they didn't finish like middle school. And yeah, and it was just like they were very educationally deprived, but all they knew were the streets for survival things, and they got caught up in stuff with the gangs and doing drugs. So I ended up going into the school, showing the young ladies how to read, lecturing. I'm sorry, not lecturing, tutoring them, doing math. And it was like basic math. And I'm thinking algebra or something like that. No, it was just basic math just to get them so that they could at least to get the pretest for the GED to see where they scored at. And I was sitting there like, this can't be real. Like these women were like really struggling. And I'm like, so like 2 + 2 is how many? And they would literally have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was like, are you serious? So I'm like really in culture shock with this. I'm just like, and I looked at the actual teacher that they had brought from the outside in, and she's just like, and they're really nonchalant about it because if they don't care, it's just a job to them. And I'm just like, these people are like here for you to help them, but you don't even care. And she was like, she said if they had did what they were supposed to do, they wouldn't be here. And I was like, well, had they did what they were supposed to be here, you wouldn't be here either.
You wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, I said you wouldn't be here either. You may have, she may have a job, but you're not going to have it here. So this must be part time. So you must have needed it. So like you say, the ends meet the needs. So the young lady who I helped write her appeal, she actually got her appeal date in court in Baltimore County. So she did get her appeal date. Yeah. So she got her appeal date. They denied it, but she did get her appeal date. And I said, well, this is step one. So you just keep trudging along. You know what I'm saying? Don't give up. Just keep going along. So in the midst of helping, so word in the street got out in the courtyard. So then now I become this person to rewrite and reconstruct these letters. So I was actually doing a lot of between going to church and prison, helping with the pastor, helping her out, and writing letters for appeals and teaching. I just stayed busy, and I always wanted to be a teacher growing up. That was one of the things I was really big on. And my grandmother used to tell me you have a special marking on you to help people. And I never knew what that meant because I was younger. I never really knew what it meant. And I was like, okay, and I just brushed it off. But as I got older, I've grown into it. So kind of, it is what it is. It stuck with me. So, but yeah, just writing letters, helping people write their appeals, helping people write letters home to their families. Um, they didn't have money to physically pay you, so you trade off in commissary, and you trade off stuff off in commissary and stuff. But it was, I'm not gonna say it wasn't. If I had to do it all over again, no, I wouldn't do it. Not recommended on Yelp at all. But with that being said, I think prison is what you make it. If you go in with this closed mind and make it hard, and the officers are just doing their job. If you go up against them, you're gonna make it hard for you.
Mm-hmm.
Ride your time. Like just ride your time. Do what you gotta do. Don't focus. Don't count the days. That was like my worst mistake the first year. Don't count the days. Don't count the days because 365 days is like 3,627. Yeah. Don't count the days.
So,
Yeah.
me personally, I always tell people if God gave me two different paths, I could go and do something different, or I could go back and become who I am. But still, either way, you're gonna fall the way you're at.
Mm-hmm.
I would go back and do it all over again
You would
because
really?
it was because of the relationships. Prison, the situation wasn't the worst situation at
Mm-mm.
all. It had bad moments. Don't get me
Of
wrong.
course.
However, I learned more. I was
Yeah.
able to help more. Or to your point, you was able to become a tutor. You was able to help some people write their appeals, do things of this nature. Without you there, even though it was you who had to sit there and deal with your own pain by sitting there, look at the work that you done.
True.
Look at who you became. And I guarantee you right now, most of them people are still thanking you today because guess what? Someone couldn't count without using their
Mm-hmm.
finger. 2 plus 2 is 4 all day long. And this right here, they wouldn't have known or received what they received had you not been there.
True. True.
So for me, I look at my life and as much as I made my body didn't want to be there, I became free here.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
yep.
because I became free mentally, my body eventually became free. I'm able
Right.
to do all the things that I'm able to do right now because guess what? I had to sit down in prison and think.
Yeah. Definitely.
So for me, I'm grateful for the time more than ever today than I've probably ever been in my life. So you said they gave you 2 5-year consecutive sentences. How
Mm-hmm.
long did you actually do off that? Because it ain't like you did 8 years. You did what?
I did the first 5 years. They ran them together, so they ran them concurrent.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were going to do them consecutive. I don't know what happened, and thankfully they didn't, but they ran them concurrent, and I ended up doing actually 4 of those 5 years. Um, the first time I went up for my appeal. I did. It wasn't not appeal. I'm sorry. I went up for my parole. It wasn't granted. And then the second time they granted it. They didn't grant it the first time because I didn't have a home plan.
Uh,
Uh, my home plan was to be my sister, my oldest sister, and when they called her, she refused it. She wouldn't do it. Um, I have no clue why, but she just wouldn't do it. So now that was a gut shot, and then I went back to the drawing board. I just went back to teaching. I never said anything. Like I'm not a crier. I don't cry. I get frustrated. I just hold it in. So I just went and went back to doing my normal. I went to work, tutored, wrote letters, stayed in contact with my children. My dad worked for DC jail and stayed in contact with my father, talking to him. He's giving me advice on what not to do, what to do. I'm like, it's not like that. I said, it's not DC jail. I said, I swear to God, I said, I go to sleep every night with my back to the door. It doesn't bother me. I was like, I'm fine in here. Um, but yeah, that's like the first time. And then my second time going up for parole, my best friend, Tiffany, she did my home plan for me. She did my home plan so I could come home. And then after I got home, I hit the ground running. Like I was like, I refused to go back to what I was and where I had been.
before we get there,
Hmm.
when you so let me see, how long was the distance between your first parole date and then your second?
A year. It was exactly 1 year.
Okay. So
Hmm.
I learned something in life.
Hmm.
Those that we want to do something ain't always the one meant to do it.
Yep.
Because you will give them the credit instead of God being able to get the credit.
Right.
So what we want normally, and there's some people that still needed your help within
Yeah.
the year. I look at instead of me looking at the negatives of things, I always see I guess you could say, some people say silver lining, but the reason why God really allowed that to happen was because guess what? Some people still needed a GED. Some people still needed your assistance in writing appeals. You were still able to strengthen them and give them what you gave them because of that year. But then when the year came, you left. Now, what was your when you was going up and they granted you your parole? What was your mind? What was your mind at? What was your the psychological thoughts behind that? How did you feel?
We're gonna backtrack for 2 seconds. You said
Go
that
ahead.
it wasn't my time to get out because my mindset was before I went up on my parole hearing, when I get out, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. I gotta get this. I gotta go back and get the money that I lost to recoup it. So my pastor from the outside told me, he was like, he said, I don't want you to take this as I told you so, but I want you to know that God sits high, he looks low. He saw everything that you were doing. And he tried to get your attention many times, many times. He tapped you on your shoulder. He jokes. He was like, Jesus threw the sandal at your neck. You ignored it. He told you to stop and sit down. He did many things. He said, you got sick. I did. I got sick as a dog. Like my gallbladder got real bad. He was like, he tried to get you to sit down to that. I'm laying in the hospital bed, still making transactions. And he was like, God tried to get your attention. And he said, you ignored him. He said, and if you don't, he told me, he said, if you don't humble yourself, God's going to humble you. So I was like, yeah, whatever, and brushed it off. So that year, it took my mind to get flashed right back to that. And my cousin wrote me a letter. And my cousin, in that letter, when I tell you that letter hurt, she said, your grandmother's flipping in her grave. And I was like, dang, that was like the opening. No hello, no nothing. It was just like, your grandmother's flipping in her grave. She said, your grandmother came out of school in the third grade, and she said she took and cleaned this white woman's house for $40 a week and never struggled. And y'all had everything that y'all needed. Not what you wanted, but you needed. And she never did anything illegal. She said, sitting there till God moves you.
Mm.
And I was like, I was like, okay. And when I went back up for my second parole hearing, I walked in there. I literally walked in there, and the lady said, do you have anything to say? I said, nope, God has already spoken for me. I said, whatever he has for me, he has for me. If he sends me back in, then I'm back in. If he tells me to go home, then I'm going home. I said, it's not up to you. It's not up to me. I said, it's up to the man upstairs. I said, because whatever decision it was four of them, any of the four y'all make, God has already planted that seed for it to be delivered and flourish out of your lips. And that was my exact words. And I sat back and I just looked and they wiki with denim. And I just sat back and I looked. And she said, the black lady on the end, she was like, well, pack your things because you're going home. And I was like, and I just looked at her and I said, thank you so much. And when I turned to the door to leave out, and I said, thank you, God. I said, because it's only because of you. And I didn't leave for it takes you like 3 days to get out. So I processed out in 3 days. And when I processed out, in the midst of me processing out, waiting for those 3 days, I wrote two more appeals. One of my students that I had tutored, she came and showed me her GED scores, and she had passed it enough to where was able to take her GED test. And she hugged me, and her name, we called her Debo. And Debo was just like, she said, thank you. She said, that's all I can say. She said, thank you. And the officer, because you're not supposed to touch anybody, she's like, Debo don't hug nobody. I was like, I know. I was like, I've been with her for a minute. I was like, Debo has no emotions whatsoever. But I felt a pride and a warmth. Like I literally felt like I accomplished something in there. I accomplished something. Processing out, my little brother picked me up and my two daughters, to see they came to visit, but to actually see them not in that room where you can't touch them. Like you can hug somebody like the first 2 minutes, but after that, but just to see everybody, it was the best thing ever. And just in my spirit itself, it was a girl that she got discharged. She was discharged. She got released the same time I got released. She didn't have a ride. So my little brother was like, who was that? And I waved to her. I said, I don't want to see you again. And I don't want you to see me no more. And she was like, I don't even have a ride. And I was like, where are you going? And she was like, I need to go to I think it was in Laurel. My little brother was like, he's like, you think I should give her a ride? I was like, it's your car. But I said, she all right. I said, go and give her. I told her, come on, so we can give you a ride to Laurel. So ended up giving her a ride to Laurel. And she, she showed me her GED paper. She actually had passed her GED test, and she was one of my students. And I was like, all right, God, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. My first meal out was Popeye's chicken. Was Popeye's chicken. And my little brother, we went in there. He was like, she wants fresh chicken. We don't want that old chicken. We want fresh chicken. She just got out of jail. And I was just like, you got so everybody just got out. And the guy that was there was like, he was like, I'm on work release. Like, so I understand. I was like, okay, okay. So yeah, it was weird, but it was a good weird. It was just like I couldn't believe it. I had a bruise like right here. I just kept pinching myself, pinching myself, pinching myself. I was like, this cannot be real. This can never be real. And my next stop was home. I took a shower, changed my clothes. Next stop was tattoo. I like tattoos. Next stop was a tattoo shop. And I went and got a tattoo. And I got my DOC number tattooed on my butt cheek. So I said every time it set me down. So every time I sat down, that's my reminder. Yep. So, and I tell everybody 921312 is always embedded in my mind. And I played it, and it's crazy. I don't play numbers, but I played it, like flipped it and played it. I've hit it twice. Um, but and then as soon as I hit it, no matter what it is, it's $40. I only pay like $1 box or whatever. It's $80. It goes straight to the church to tithes and offerings. I don't even keep it. That's where it goes. Or either I give it to the last time I hit, I gave it to my grandchildren. Yeah.
So, since you've been home,
hmm
what have you done?
Since I have been home, I have went to an adult reading program to assist voluntarily to assist adults to read. I and it's so many adults, so many. Um, it's really hurtful. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hurtful, and it's more women that I've encountered than men here lately. In the beginning was a lot of men, but now it's like more women, and it's really and they're young. They're really young, like in their 20s, mid 20s to like early 30s. That's young to me, and I'm like, well, it wasn't like you were barred from school, but what happened? That's neither here nor there. But yeah, um, came out, got a job. I work at the University of Maryland, College Park. I've been there now since 2015. I went to Strayer University. One of my friends who since has passed away, I wanted to go to school and I could never. It's crazy. I didn't have the money to pay the application fee. And Nick, God rest his soul, Nick, he said, I got something for you, sis. And I was like, what's that? He was like, check your text message. So I checked it, and it was a receipt from Strayer University. He paid my fee, my application fee, to sign up for my associate's degree. And
Mm.
I drove from Waldorf to Capitol Heights is where he lived at, and gave him the biggest hug ever. I told him, thank him so much. And I told him, I said, when I finish this, I'll pay you. He was like, you ain't got to pay me back. He said, your payback is your degree. So I said, okay, cool. I got my associate's degree, made the dean's list. I'm sorry, principals. It's called principals honor roll. Made principals honor roll and the achievement list. And when I earned that degree, I gave it to Nick. Um, I put it on his wall and gave it to him. Nick passed away from cancer. It's been almost 9 years ago, and his partner put it in his coffin. And I said, thank you. I appreciate it. That was like really heartfelt. Um, the professor at Strayer was like, this associate's degree is a certificate in the real world. He said, all of you, I want y'all to keep pursuing your degrees. He was like, because being African American, we're already behind the eight ball. And he was like, no matter how many degrees you have, it's always going to be a little rougher for you. He said, so you use your degrees and your voice to get what you need. My late husband was working at the University of Maryland. So school for me was absolutely free, absolutely free. It makes no sense for you not to get what you go for. So I enrolled in human resources for my bachelor's degree. So I got a degree in human resources. And then I went back for another bachelor's degree in business administration. And that's what my degree from Strayer was business administration. So I had the associates was business administration, and then the two bachelor's degrees for business administration and human resources. Um, I worked in the facilities department at University of Maryland, helping out with a lot of the technical side of it. I'm a hands-on person. I like to build stuff. That's not what I signed up for because that's what I thought I was getting into, but it was more administrative. So kind of did HR stuff for them with the technicians, educating a lot of the technicians on the rules and the regulations of the union contracts. I was like, reading is fundamental. If you don't do nothing, read your union contract. This is illegal. They can't do this. They can't do that. Make sure you know. We have something called the MOU. Pull that MOU up. If you don't understand it, put it in Google. Google will tell you. And if not, reach out to your union rep so they can explain it to you further. So then I became a steward assistant in the union to help the guys out there. In the midst of this, I had enrolled in the master's program for management human resources. And then I transitioned from facilities into HR, but in the department it's called IBBR, which is in Shady Grove in Rockville, and it's a research lab. And went there, and it's like everybody, and it's crazy. I said I've always wanted to be a teacher, but I've never actually stood in the classroom to teach. But I've taught lessons on the outside. So I guess a teacher, in my mind, physically does not have to be in the classroom with with the students, because everybody's a student in life as long as you had an open mind. But went to IBBR, and a lot of things were being done, I'm not gonna say illegally, but not very scrupulously done for the staff and the employees there, because that unit is what they call a non-bargaining unit. So they're not in the union, but it's a unionized organization. So they still have to follow the union rules. And a lot of the employees didn't think so because I'm not in the union. I'm like, this is a unionized organization. They can't just send you home and tell you not to come back. Like, there has to be justification. There's steps to things that they have to do. And they weren't taking those steps. So two of the supervisors got called to the carpet, as I want to say, and they had to answer for it. And no, it's not a unionized, no, you're not in the union, but union has to assist you. And yeah, they got called out on it. And at that time, when I was at IBBR, I had stepped away from the assistant stewardship for the union, but I just kind of just followed it, because if you don't know, people will take advantage of you, take total advantage of you. So completed my master's, and then went back for a second master's in organizational behavior. Organizational behavior is baby psychiatry, baby. It makes you sit back and look at your coworkers, and why it makes you try to figure out why they're doing things the way they're doing. But they're doing it because of management.
Yes.
And they do it things strategically. They're doing it to stay under the radar and to survive and to keep their jobs. So you just kind of sit back and watch it and see what's going on. So I have the two masters and then the two bachelors and the associates. My husband got sick. My husband didn't get to see none of this come to fruition. My husband passed December 26, 2020 from COVID. Before they intubated him, he gave me a laundry list of stuff. So I'm like, I said, you're being awfully bossy here, sir, in the hospital, and that was our running joke. And I was like, but when you come home, because our plan, he was coming home. We had I had talked to his caregiver, his case management. He had to come home on oxygen and all this other stuff. So in my mind, you're coming home. So he had given me all this stuff. And he kept sending me all these gospel songs. And I'm like, why do you keep sending me all these gospel songs? Well, I just like them. But they were like funeral oriented. And I'm like, this is not something I want to hear. Or, I was like, not while you're in the hospital. And we were shut down. Like, everything was shut down. I couldn't go nowhere, no nothing. So he told me, he said, I need you to promise me 3 things. I was like, all right, I got you. He was like, I want you to go finish your degrees. I said, well, I just finished one. I was like, can my brain rest a second? He was like, go get your PhD. I was like, Eric, I'm not doing that. I was like, I said, that's too much. I said, you got to apply. You got to do your dissertation. You got to do this, that, and the third. I was like, I'm not doing that. And he was like, just tell me you will. I said, the 17 years we've been together, I've never lied to you. And I'm not going to lie to you now because I'm not doing it. And then he was like, make sure my kids, his kids are grown, so I have bonus children. He's like, make sure my kids are okay. And I said, okay. And he was like, go by our house. And I was like, well, what kind of house you want? He gave me specifics of what he wanted. So I said, okay. I was like, so when you come home, all this will be taken care of. And he was like, all right. I said, except for the school thing, because I ain't doing that. And he was like, all right. 2 days later, he went on the ventilator, and the doctor had told us from the very beginning, if he goes on the ventilator, he's not coming off. He's not going to make it. My husband went in the hospital. He walked out of our house December the 3rd. 23 days later, he was gone. Um, my husband actually, this is totally off topic, kind of, sort of, he actually gave up. They told him that he would be on disability. He had never been the type of person to sit still, never. And when they told him that he wasn't gonna be able to work anymore, I told everybody, like, his face shifted. Like, I literally seen this man's face shift. And from that moment, in the back of my mind, I was like, I didn't want to bring it to the front of my head. I was like, he's not coming home. But I was like, nope. I just try to stay positive. His funeral was January the 9th, and we had to schedule around COVID, all this stuff. I had to say goodbye to my husband on Zoom because we couldn't go to the hospital. I didn't get to see him until the day I went to the funeral home. And to make sure he was okay, presentable I had to drop his clothes off at the back door. They dressed him. I had to go to the funeral home to make sure he was dressed okay. And I said, okay, he was fine. And then his funeral was the 9th. And in my left ear to this day, something told me to be still. Be still. Honor Eric. Be still. And that's all I heard. And I literally turned and looked. And I was like, okay. And I know something was in my ear. I didn't have locks then. I kept my hair cut short. So I was like, it was nothing here to say it was something like something, but be still and honor. It said, honor your husband is what it said. Whatever it was said. And I said, I just looked. And February that year, I enrolled into the PhD program. Enrolled into the PhD program. You have 8 years to complete your PhD. My PhD is in organizational behavior and education. It's actually in higher ed. So I did get my teaching degree, but it's in organizational behavior with human resources, but it's under higher ed. So I earned my PhD August of last year, actually. I completed in 2023. I did it in 3 years.
Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
don't tell people condolences nor sorry for your loss because I don't look at things as being lost.
Mm-mm.
I tell them to share with me something great about the person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna ask you, share something great about him. And you just shared a bunch, but share something great about him that will inspire you till the day you leave here.
That people to this day, my husband will be gone 5 years in December, and everybody that I encounter tells me what a great man that this man was. Like, he never fussed, he never argued. My husband was 6'9.5". He wore size 18.5 shoe. He was he was 312 pounds, and you wouldn't be able to tell it because of his height, but he was a giant, a gentle giant, and would give you the shirt off of his back. And every time someone said, "You're Eric," like, yeah, he was such a great man. He was such this, he was such that. Like, his position at the University of Maryland, they closed. He was an HVAC engineer. They closed his position out. They've never hired anybody back under that position since.
Mm.
Never. They said nobody would ever. They joked and said, even though he wore 18.5, we know nobody would ever fill those shoes. But they was like, nobody would never ever fill his shoes, no matter how hard we tried. And they closed his position out. They retired it. That's what they call it. They retired it. So that meant the world to me. And I tell everybody, it's like, that position number right there, that was Eric Stephen Dubois' position number. And I said, it'll never be used again. Never.
That's
And
powerful.
coming from the HR side, that means a lot because we're always recycling position numbers.
So
Always.
there's a few things that I want you to do before we leave. I
Okay.
need you to, and thank you for teaching because you was a teacher in prison.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that's
a
where it
teacher.
started.
Yes, that is a teacher. Anybody who teachers or mentors or whatever you want to call it, you was actually teaching. So you, from a little girl to then, you actually fulfilled your position.
Mhm. I did. Yep.
And I guess you could say you was teaching your little brother the whole time too. You got to remember you said from 10 years old till you was taking care of him.
Mhm. So he was 21. Yep.
Yep. So another teacher. How? What I want you to do, give me a word of wisdom for anybody who may watch this that will inspire them, whether they have never been to prison, whatever their situation may be, something that may inspire them. And then, well, that'll be it.
Okay. Your situation doesn't define you. It builds you. You have to build from it. Everything that's thrown, every brick, everything that's thrown at you. I don't care if it's a raggedy stick, a chip of a brick. You stand on that and you make it the strongest foundation in your life, and you build upon it. Don't let nobody call it a soapbox. Don't let nobody call it anything else. And never allow anybody to make you feel less than. Because therefore, by the grace of God, tomorrow could be their turn.
Hmm. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank you.
You're special.
Thank you.
I only meet great people. Couldn't make this stuff up if I wanted to. I promise you. You're one of the greatest.
Thank
Continue
you.
to be who you are. Continue to inspire people. Continue to teach because God has given you that gift to do so. And with it, we get to change the world. So continue being a world changer.
Thank you. I definitely will.
So my name is Carlos Walker. This is Forward Progress. This is Chalet Dubois.
Yes.
Blessings.
Blessings to you